Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video we're going to look at what we're covering in January. So for January, since there's a lot of food things that are being celebrated in January for some interesting reason. So I decided to cover food. So I'm going to look at 4 cookbooks, 3 blogs, 3 cooking blogs, and 1 cooking YouTube channel. So the 4 books I'm going to cover are Roald Dahl's Revolting Recipes, because I own it and have since I was a kid, and it's interesting. It's interesting. The other book I'm going to cover is The Feast of Ice and Fire, which is the companion cookbook to The Feast of Ice and Fire, what there is of a book series. Most people know this is Game of Thrones. So this is the official cookbook. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm not recommending the books, because they're not child friendly and they're not done, and Martin has issues, lots of issues with finishing anything. So, but the cookbook is fantastic. It has a historical aspect to it. It uses the Game of Thrones as a backdrop to looking at historical cooking techniques and historical recipes, as well as throwing in some modern rendition of some of those recipes. So it's absolutely fabulous as a cookbook. I highly recommend the cookbook, not the book series, the cookbook. The other 3 cookbooks I'm going to be reviewing are the Anne of Green Gables cookbook, which was co-written by L. Maud Montgomery's granddaughter. The Secret Garden cookbook, which is very farm-to-table, healthy kind of food. And then a Celtic cookbook. All of which I chose specifically because I liked what the recipes were in them, and they're kind of my style of cooking book. So I don't want to own cooking books that I'm not going to use. The blogs I'm going to be looking at are 3 family-focused blogs. I tried to keep them generalized, so they're not any specific type of diet kind of thing where we're dealing with specific people who have celiac disease or have gluten, or specifically have gluten sensitivities, or are messing around with keto dieting, which is just bizarre to me because that's designed to deal with people who have epilepsy and seizures, and I don't know why anybody who isn't having epilepsy and seizures would be trying that. And in addition, no blogs are specifically food allergy or anything, though they're out there. Partially because that's not how we cook. I'm looking at things that I would recommend, that I would use. Specifically, we cook a wide variety of food in our house, particularly try to vary different cultures and things and try things differently. Different foods, different recipes, different concepts, particularly different world recipes, literally on a weekly basis. We're very experimental in this household. My child is, as of this video, which is being shot in June, so we're still in 2021 when I'm shooting this. You guys will see it in come January. But before she turned 2, my daughter's had kimchi a couple of times. We tried cactus most recently, which we didn't particularly like. She's had scallops and shrimp and tofu and chickpea paste and chickpeas in a variety of other ways, as well as various curries and a dozen other things, because we're experimental in this household. So, and there's more to add to it. So that's kind of essentially it's to my own personal taste and things that I would use. Now, why would I be covering cookbooks and cooking blogs and then the YouTube channel, which is historical food? And that's the reason I'm covering it. It covers various historical aspects of cooking. And that's the reason I bring it up, because it's educational. And this is partially a homeschool channel. So again, why am I bringing up cookbooks, let alone cooking blogs and a cooking YouTube channel when I'm focusing normally at regular books and films and homeschooling stuff? Well, cooking has a lot to say for what you can use it for learning, from the cultural aspects and as well as the historical aspects of different cooking. And cooking is embedded into cultural and anthropology as well, and you have all the historical aspects of different ingredients and different cooking methods, and it's a giant rabbit hole of information that you can be wandering down. I mean, the entire history of bread is a subject all in itself. So, as well as language stuff, because those of my English speaking, there's a difference between a cow and beef and chicken and poultry and pork and pig. And yes, we can thank the Normans for that, because French. So, and that's another one, again, it's a rabbit hole. You also have the cooking aspect, the math aspects, because you have ratios to deal with if you are dealing with fractions, and if you want to increase a recipe or decrease a recipe. And again, you're just kind of dealing with the regular old fractions of we're measuring stuff out, which is very, very important, particularly in baking. And then, of course, baking has to do with chemistry. You're dealing with leavening agents and rising times, particularly when you're dealing with breads, and different ratios of fat and oil and thickeners and flavors. So it's definitely a chemistry aspect. And then you have the concept of writing a grocery list, which is practical, and doing a budget, which is a mixture of both math and practical. And, you know, the aspect of cooking, which is practical, because most kids, it's vital that they know how to cook, because making your own meals is cheaper than going out. It's also healthier. And then you have that aspect of it, of eating healthy and well-rounded eating, where you're trying to be healthy and you're not trying to eat the over-processed foods, which is one of the reasons you cook from home and you learn to cook and learn to season things and learn to make food taste good, because it's also a social aspect. I love cooking. I love cooking a lot. It's one of the things that I do for fun. I bake frequently. I cook a variety of different things. It's something I intend to pass on to my daughter, and it's a vital skill, and there's just so much that can be used and taught with this stuff. So it's something I want to bring forth. And it's also occasionally books, if you're connected to that. It's connected. There's food mentioned all the time, as in a Roald Dahl. And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is all based on food. James and the Giant Peach is a very strange book. I will probably eventually cover. All revolves around a giant peach. I think Witches has food in it. So, and then various things. They talk about food in all sorts of books, so it's kind of good to know. And there's all sorts of other things that are connected to food, about seating protocols, and there's an entire history of how we used forks. Yes, all sorts of things. So cooking and food is a wide-ranging area where there's a lot you can bounce off of, particularly when you're dealing with education. And again, it's fun. It's a passion of mine, so I wanted to share it with you. So that's why we're covering food. Now with the blogs, if you're familiar with my work, particularly what I did in November, the blogs are going to be similar to what I was doing when I was looking at those Smithsonian online resources. So I'm going to film kind of an introduction and a closing, and then in the middle, you're going to be looking at my computer screen as I kind of go through these 3 specific family blogs. Again, that's kind of my gearing. I wasn't necessarily always completely kid-friendly, because we don't really do kid food in my house. We do food. We do creative food. So I wanted, and once again, I want to reach as big an audience as possible, not just little kids, because I think older kids are not going to be interested in things like ants on a log. So, and cutting fruit into stars and things that I remember from various cookbooks. Not to mention, a lot of kids-focused cookbooks are not food that I would eat, because a lot of it's bland and a lot of it's not really all that healthy sometimes. So I wanted to reach as wide a range of people. And again, it's focused on things that I would actually use and I would actually recommend, which is kind of important to me. But yeah, you're going to watch me kind of go through and give a brief review of some of these cooking blogs. And the YouTube channels, because I'm familiar with it, and again, there's historical concept, and I like the presenter. He does things very, very well. He's very entertaining, and he gives vital information. And I believe he cites his sources. So that's the other thing. He'll actually cite his sources, whereas he's getting some of his information. So it's very educational. So that's what we're covering in January. I hope you come along with me if you are interested in the rest of my stuff. Want to go back to Christmas, cover the Christmas stuff. Want to check out my Native American stuff. That was Thanksgiving, so that was November. Halloween stuff is always fun. I covered all of Harry Potter from September through October. Next month, I'm doing Black History Month as well as Asian History Month because it's the Lunar New Year, so I'm covering that as well because I know technically Asian American History Month is in May. I'm going to be doing more of that stuff there. But, of course, then I have a bunch of other book reviews. I cover the Anne of Green Gables series. I cover Wizard of Oz. I cover 101 Dalmatians, as well as a bunch of other stuff, some kids stuff, and films, and some travel stuff, and some sprinkling of homeschooling stuff as well. So if you want to check all that stuff out. And again, there's more to come. Thank you.